Hello everybody, and thanks for coming this morning, and we appreciate your time. And what we're going to do today is we're going to look at Microsoft 365 and some of the other applications that are within most people's subscriptions. Just some housekeeping rules, and we've put this thing down. We've put this session down for 1 hour, but we might run over a little bit. If we happen to, there will be a recording of this after the fact, and we'll send the links out for it as well. There's a question and answer selection on the right hand side of your screen at the top right, and please feel free to ask questions throughout the session. We've got a few people on this. There's myself, Mark Edwards, and Andy Brookfield, who's going to go through some demos of some software.
Hello.
And there is also there is also Jordan Whitaker, who's going to be manning the Q&A, so please just ask away. He's a very intelligent bloke, and I'm sure he'll be able to answer all your questions. And we'll pick them up as we go along as well. If there's something more in detail, we'll have a chat about it live through the session. And the idea really is to give you an idea of what else is about and what's on the market. Just starting a little bit about us, we know we've got some customers on this today, but we also have some people that we've never met before. Just a bit of background on Seriun. So we're a technology company based in the UK. We provide managed IT services, some telecoms and software solutions, including Microsoft Dynamics and a lot of the other Microsoft stack of products. We're a Microsoft Silver partner, so everything we're showing you, we get some resource from Microsoft about, but ultimately we get a lot of training, and we do a lot of training and pass a lot of exams on the products we're discussing, where possible, where applicable, to ensure that what we're talking about hopefully is correct and up to date. We're also a 3CX hosted phone system provider, which allows us to provide disaster recovery solutions on phone systems as well. And as mentioned, we are a Microsoft Dynamics partner as well. We do a lot of these workshops, well, we have been since the lockdown kicked in, and the intention really is to continue that. So if you have any suggestions on what you would like us to cover in future sessions, please just email social@seriun.co.uk. It doesn't matter what the suggestion is, it's all important, so please let us know and we'll drop it in. Now, me and Andy are on the webinar today, but we have a team of roughly about 30 people now, and there's a link there if you would like to look and who we are. And if you're one of our customers and you speak to certain people on a regular basis, you'll be able to see all our amazing faces and pictures on there, to be honest. It's up to you if you decide to go there. So what we're talking about today is application, well, for the next 3 sessions actually, which we'll cover towards the end of this. What we're specifically talking about is the applications within Microsoft 365 that are not the ones which we all know about, specifically Teams, email, and SharePoint. What we want to focus on is the other ones within the range. There's quite a few, to be honest, so what we've broken them down into is 3 sessions. Today's session is on Planner, Sway, and basically what we want to make sure is that you get that kind of additional value add for what you're potentially paying for. So you get these applications within the Microsoft stack of products. Now, they have renamed them from Office 365 to Microsoft 365. So you'll probably hear me and Andy stumble over these a few times and call them the wrong thing. So apologies up front. You might have had an Microsoft Office 365 Essentials or a Premium or an Enterprise, which is an E1 or an E3 product before. They've been renamed, which I'll cover in a second, to different ones. But all the applications that we talk about in these sessions are included within the basic, standard, premium and enterprise ranges. If you're an enterprise customer though, and not one of the Microsoft basic or standard or premium ones, you might just have to enable some of the applications that we show you over these sessions. The enterprise ones don't include some of them, such as bookings by default, and there's another one called MileIQ. They have to be turned on and enabled. There's usually no charge for that at all. It's just an admin function that needs to happen. So if we do show you something and you think, well, I can't find it, it's probably because of that. But if you're a customer of ours, just let us know or speak to your IT partner and get them to turn it on. All the applications we're going to show you, which are included in your subscriptions, you load usually through the Office portal, which is office.com. The username and password for that is always your email address, and the password that you use for your email address That may be the same password that you have that you log into your PC, depending how your network is configured. And it will ask you for two-factor authentication if that's something that you have enabled on your account as well. But fundamentally, a lot of these applications people don't know about because they're kind of hidden away in the Microsoft portal. And Andy, when he's going to demo you, the first thing he's going to show you is how to get to these, which is basically a few clicks when you log in. But please go and have a look, have a play. A lot of the applications are designed to be user-friendly and easy to set up and go with. And in fact, Andy's demos are about 5 or 10 minutes per application for today. But fundamentally, there's not some of these you can get up and running within half an hour. Most of them you access through the web. Some have desktop and mobile apps for them as well. So it does depend on which one you're using. For example, the discussions we've had before about Teams, that's got an application for basically every type of access you can imagine. Some of them are web-based only, but it is worth investigating because a lot which do have the mobile phone apps work really well, means you can get it on the move without too much of an issue, and it also allows you to be productive across the board. Just to recap, though, Office 365 is no longer a thing. It is Microsoft 365. So they've renamed as of the 22nd of April. Most invoices will change this month for our customers, but you should see it when you log into the portal. So if you were a Business Essentials user before, you're now a Business Basic, Microsoft 365 Business Basic. If you were an Office 365 Business Premium, you're now a Business Standard, etc., etc. It's just a naming convention more than anything else. It doesn't impact the enterprise ranges, which is E1, E3, E5, which are the traditional ones, but it does impact the ones which were the business ones. It is just a renaming exercise. There's not been any feature change, and there's not been any price change at all. It's just more of a PR thing than anything else. Okay. So what I want to cover first, out of the 3 applications we're going to look at today, is Microsoft Forms. Again, it's included in the subscriptions that we've talked about, and it's kind of like a little hidden gem, to be honest. We use it quite a bit internally, and it can really help you specifically for these reasons. So Microsoft Forms is a way for you to basically create surveys, quizzes, or polls, and actually get information from your staff internally in a quick manner. If you've ever sent out an email saying, can you all reply to me with your current display equipment requirements, or send an email out to everyone with an attached Word document that says, please fill in this Word document and send it back to me, and then you end up with 20 copies of the same Word document, which you then have to collate, migrate into Excel or whatever application you're going to use in the long term. Microsoft Forms allows you basically to send out surveys, quizzes, as mentioned, to your staff, and actually in some regards externally, and get feedback for whatever you're looking about. It just saves a huge amount of time from our experience in terms of that collation of information, and it's really worth looking at if you've ever done that before, because it only takes a few seconds to set up. Well, not a few seconds, Andy will shoot me for that. It's a little bit more, as they say.
Well, it's a 5-minute demo, so.
yeah, and to be honest, by the end of what Andy shows you, you'll be able to do it. So what we're going to do is show you Microsoft Forms. And what we say when we do these sessions, and when we've done in the past, is we do understand that some of the applications that we show you, you might look at them and feel, oh, that's not for me, I don't need it. But if we can just show you one application that might save you 20 minutes a month, then it's been worth it by a huge stretch. So if Microsoft Forms isn't for you, not to put a negative on it, that's why we're doing multiple applications within each of these webinars. So hopefully one of them does fit your requirements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Andy, and he's going to give you a quick demo of it.
Right, hi everyone. I'm just going to share my screen as quick as I can. Right, so you should all now be seeing my demo tenant in 365. And what I'll do is just walk through some of the bits and pieces on here. So like Mark said and explained really well what Forms is about, you get to these from the office.com. Usually I like to type in portal.office.com to get to it. So that's this keyboard. And when you go on to portal.office.com, you'll generally see it looking like, here's what I made earlier. Just minimize that thing. And you'll probably all be used to seeing this, and there's a lot of apps in here that are part of 365 that you'll be used to, like Outlook, Word, Excel. And what we're looking at today really is the other hidden ones. Now, you may not see Sway, Planner and Forms on here when you first go on. This is sort of automatically generated depending upon what you've been using. But if you press on the All Apps button there, all of a sudden some of the other bits that you get in the 365 suite become visible for you. These are also visible underneath this little square thing where you can get to them again with all apps and see the additional apps that are available. Now we'll start with Forms today. And if I go into Forms, if I can find it, because this rearranges itself all the time. And Forms starts you off really with a blank canvas. The first time you go into Forms, it does give you a little bit of a video with a demo and a quick walkthrough, but hopefully I should be able to show you some of that now. But when you first go to it, have a look through the demo that they give you and it'll give you a decent overview of it. Like Mark said, so the kind of use cases that we see Forms is when you're trying to gather information. We did say it was for your staff, but you can share these forms externally as well. So if you wanted to take if you wanted to share a form to get customer reviews, for example, on a new product range that you've launched, then it's completely possible to generate a form in Forms and share that to your customers, and their responses would be collated into well, they're stored in Forms, but then you can export it to Excel and view it in a nicer way. Here's some examples that I've put together previously. So we've got a quick Christmas do, where we've said, where would you like to have this year's Christmas do? Would it be Teams, Zoom, Facebook, or WhatsApp? Because we don't know what's going to happen towards the end of the year. And what dates would be a good idea for you. So that's one of the kind of things that it might be. It might be soft stuff. It might be anything that you'd have a paper form that you'd send out and expect people to fill in and then need to store that information somewhere. The display screen equipment type of question is a good example of that, where it's more of a sort of professional thing that you might need to ask. Who are you? What's your job role? When are you filling this in? What type of role do you perform? And you can create these forms with all of these details in there. So if I'm looking through this, let's just quickly show you how you would go about making a new form. So you have two different types that you can create on here. You have forms and quizzes, which we won't touch too much on, but I'll show you an example of that Jordan's made for me earlier. So if you want to make a new form, you click new form and you get a blank canvas really for it, and you can start to quickly put together what this is. It's really simple. It's goes through and starts top down, and you can sort of build it up as you go along. So in this, we might say we're doing a team event, and we're just trying to ask people, what do we want to do as a sort of get together post all of this happening. Oh, and a usual kind of thing, Microsoft being Microsoft, this is new. This wasn't on there yesterday when I was looking at it, but still, let's go through. So it's trying to give you suggestions of the kind of questions that you might want to ask on this. So we'll just say a team event, and we'll create some choices that someone can add. So we can say venue, and we could say, where do we want to go for a team event? So that could be a local pub, or it might be cinema, or restaurant. And you can just go through and keep adding different things as it goes, as you go through. Golf, right? And you can just add new sections and build this up as you need for whatever may be relevant for the form. Sorry, I go quiet, can't type and talk at the same time. And we can say dates that you might want to do. And it's not all about options like selection fields like this. There's all sorts of different kind of fields that you can add to a form. So you can add a free text box and say, what's your name? Or you can add loads of different ones. So you can do like a 5-star rating, or what did you think of this type of thing? Or you can do a specific date field where you can enter a date. And if you click on the more, there's other different things that you can do. These, I don't know how you pronounce that, but there's basically a grid where you get strongly agree to disagree, but you get the option to choose what they are. They're quite useful if you've got a lot of feedback that you're trying to get. You know, would you recommend working here to a friend kind of scenarios? Then you can build up them questions in a grid and then get responses back from your staff. Or again, if there's something external where you'd want to do that kind of thing, it's quite easy to do as well. So it's all well and good. So you've got an idea of how to create these forms. The color scheme by default with this green, not a massive fan, but under the theme section here, you can choose from a number of pre-existing themes. So if I have a look, say this one, if you're in a design class or something, right? But they all apply to it, and it changes the look and feel and the colors of it all. You, I believe, can also down at the bottom here add and customize a theme to make it really down onto your company's branding. So if you wanted to add your company's logo as the background and whatever color scheme you use as a business, especially if you're sharing some of these things externally, you can make it match your branding. Okay, so now I've made that form, I don't have to go anywhere or press save or anything like that. If I go back to forms here, that team event, here's one I made earlier, but this is the ones from today, that's now there. And what we can do with that is we can share that to ask for people to fill this in. There's a few options available on here. So you can say only people within your organization have access to this form, or anyone with the link. So again, internal and external gathering of information. You get a little bit more with the inside of your organization because you do have the fact that it knows the person's 365 account who's filled it in. So on your results type of thing, you can see this person did that, and you wouldn't have to put a text box on there saying, who are you that is filling that form in? Whereas if you say anyone with the link, if they click on it, then you would need to build into your form some way of saying, who are you, if you wanted to capture that. So moving from there, ways that you can share this form. The easiest way is with just a link, which is generated when you make this. And you can share that link via email, or you can share it as a post on your social media or whatever you please. I don't see much use for this, but you can create a QR code. So if you wanted to attach this onto your products with a little label and say, please give us your feedback on this, then you can print that out and stick that on, and people can scan it with a phone and fill it in. All modern things these days. You can get some embedded code here. So if you've got a website or blog that allows you to copy and paste some web code into it, then you can copy and paste this out, and you can embed this form into your web media to request information back from people. And again, that could be an internal thing as well. So you might do this in a form and then put this into a SharePoint site, for example, to ask people to fill it in. Last one on here is the ability to just press email, and this just pops up your default mail client and allows you to send this out via email. It does a bit of formatting of the body of it, but it's not set up very well on here. There are some other options here about sharing this template, but I'm not going to go too far into this because we're going to try and keep this nice and succinct. That's probably not the right word for it, but moving on. So that's all about sharing it and what happens when someone fills it in. So once we've got that share link, then if someone visits it, they fill it in and it looks like this. So you can say, I prefer to go to the cinema on the 1st of December and my name is Dave. And you can answer the questions, and when they're submitted, goes through, thanks, it's been submitted. Okay. This bit about submit another response, depending upon the type of thing you're looking at, you can disable that so you can only get one response on some stuff. Okay, so once we've got that, if we want to have a look at the responses that we've had. So let me just refresh this. And we should see that for this team event, we've now had one response. So I can click into that and look at the responses and review what's come back. and I can even open that in Excel. And if I wish to, there's obviously analytics that you could do off the back of this. You know, we're getting on average 4.7 out of 5 on our scores. You can view specific results where you can go through and page through the different ones and how long they took to answer it. If I go to another one where I've got a couple of results, you can see that a little bit better. And you can page through and see what people have responded with. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so the other thing that you can do with these, which is quite useful, is if you, for example, have launched a new product range and you want to test your staff on their knowledge of this. So you've given people a demo and you're wanting to check that they've actually been paying attention. So that's where the quizzes come in. And what we have here is an example quiz. So I'll just go into the edit mode for this. And it's very similar setup as what you saw before with the forms, where if I go down to the bottom, you can just add different types of fields to it and you just build it up as you go. And you get a similar experience for the creation of it, but the difference is that you can set things like a pass score, and you can also review the responses that you've had and comment back to these. So you can say, you know, so Megan did the product quiz, well done. And if there was a specific question that you wanted to point some specific feedback on, you can say that was a difficult one. Or if they'd got it wrong, you could sit there and point them in the direction of why they got it wrong, and then you can, where's the button for it? But you can respond back to them off the back of it, and it sends them an email and they can review that by clicking onto their link to the form. Okay, so I think that's everything I wanted to show on forms. So if we could go back to the presentation and pass back on to Mark.
We've had a few questions come through, which are really good questions as well, and John's going through and answering them. Just a note on the questions, if you can put your name at the top of them, and when you submit them, that would be appreciated. You just fill in the section above where it asks you to put the question in. And there is a good point which has come on the Q&A. Microsoft has always been driven via Outlook in the past when it comes to collaboration. That's changing and changing so much, Teams being an obvious example. But all these other applications are coming round about in the portal, the office.com. It can either be portal.office.com or office.com. It goes to the same place. But it is worth noting that these things are now popping up on web-based solutions and not applications on your PCs. We have some Q&A slides at the end from the questions you've submitted, and one of them covers that, so we'll go into that in more detail there. So the next application we're going to have a quick look at and a quick run round is Microsoft Planner. It's been around for quite a bit actually, and it's really good. In my opinion, it's a really good application. It's a basic project planner, or as Andy probably describes it better than me, it's a task planner. It's downranging the product stack from Microsoft Project. It usually competes with Trello, Basecamp, solutions like that that are on the market that have a freemium offering and then charge you a bit of money on top of that if you want their additional features. It stacks pretty well against basically the no charge offerings which are out there. It allows you to create plans. Good real world uses for this are when you have internal projects that need multiple people to work on, or you've got a long-term project that you need to really focus on and distribute across 2 or 3 people, and you don't have a formalized project management system within your business, or you're not a project-driven business, if that makes sense. So quite a few of our customers who work in construction, for example, we'll use Microsoft Project because it's a good piece of software. It does cost a fair bit of money, but it is genuinely a good bit of software. You know, full Gantt charts, assignments and allocation, and following it through to every step, and a lot of compliance. Planner is really designed for those businesses who don't have the revenue, should we say, to put Microsoft Project in for the benefit that it would give over just smaller driven projects. And it allows you to basically create those and design those out, and more importantly, assign tasks. It integrates quite tightly with Microsoft Teams, and it also obviously integrates with Outlook in terms of emailing and back and forth when tasks are completed. and it just allows you to get through distinct projects quite quickly. So what Andy's going to do is give you a similar size demo on Planner, if you don't mind, Andy. But he's on mute, and he forgot to mute himself. Unmute himself.
Hello, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, live demos, eh? Okay, so I was just saying we go back to the sort of starting point. I did know that some people had said about like difference between portal.office.com or office.com. It's the same thing. It just gives you a different screen. If you go to office.com, you've got to go to the top right and click sign in. But if you go to portal.office.com, it just goes straight to the log on page. That's why I generally go to that. Okay, so again, in this list of all apps, you can click on Planner, and Planner will load you into something that looks a bit like this. So if I have a look on here, I've got a few plans that have been created. I don't see this really as being a project management tool, I'll say. It can be used to manage projects, but a full PSA has got a lot more features, like Mark said, about like Gantt charts and organizing tasks in a bit of a different way. This is more sort of a task management where you can group tasks together, which could be used for projects. But yeah, I will show you through as we go. So the idea on here, we've got an example plan that's available. And what that's doing here in this IT plan is this is more of a sort of group of tasks for a group of individuals, in this case, the IT department. So these are all of the IT tasks that need to be done. Worth pointing out at this point that this is a separate sort of task list. It's not necessarily linked into your Outlook tasks, and that's because of the difference of functionality, where you can have things like multiple people assigned to them, where you can label tasks in a specific manner. So there's not a lot of crossover in there. So if you are looking at using Planner, this is a sort of separate set of tasks that you can have a look at. Okay, so going through on here, the top section is really, these are referred to as buckets. And these can be any sort of grouping of the tasks within this overall plan that you like. In this case, they've decided to do it as high, medium, low, and sort of when we can look at it sort of tasks. But in this one, I've created another task where I've split them into different sections. So I'm looking at, say, if we were looking at doing a new store, and we can say that these are the site preparation tasks, this is the promotion of the store, this is the stock ordering task selection, and recruitment of staff. And if we're going through on there, so what we can do in here is I'll make a new one quickly, and we'll call it another new store. We'll call it new store 2, and it'll look a bit like this. And it gets started with no buckets other than this to-do bucket, which is a sort of default one. And you can really quickly just add in there the different groups that you want to do. So like I said before, so site selection, and you can build up what these might be. And as you can see, it's fairly quick to do. And then within them different groups, you can start to add a task and say for site selection, so visit, what do they call them now? Site, whatever. And you can really quickly put tasks together and get mortgage quote. And you can quickly put together the sort of different tasks that you'd need to do within that bucket. Within the tasks that you've got as well there, you have the option to assign them to an individual. Let me go to one that's probably got a bit more to it. So we can say on here. So we can assign that task to a specific individual. Can I do that to Jeff, or are they not a member of this one? No, it's just Megan. So I can assign a task to an individual. There's a few other different sort of flags that you can set as to have you started this task or not. There's an option on here to add a checklist within a task as well. So if that task is split into different sections, so in this case, agree rental terms, so it might be receive terms, and then you might want to say review with manager, sign, return. So you can see on here that you can put together a checklist, And you have the option on here as well to say, as part of this plan, do you want to see the checklist in here? And very quickly you can just go through and say, so we were looking at sourcing services for this site, so we've sorted out water, we've sorted out gas, we're still yet to sort out electric, phones and internet. And you can go through and group all of that together. Once the entire thing's completed, if you tick on the top level there, that'll complete it and remove that task from the list. And they can be reviewed as well separately. So let's go through some of the other things that you can do on the tasks here as well. There's these labels that are on there. By default, they're just shown as different colors, but you can overtype in here what they might be. There's some good examples of that on this IT plan here, where they've decided to label these up as support tasks or projects, or an internal project related task. And these are the different flags. So I created one where I just said this is external, so are external people required for this? So in this case of upgrading switch firmware, we've said that this is an internal project, but will require external people to be involved as well. But the person internally who's dealing with it is Megan. Okay. Okay, so we've got that on there. Right, so one other thing that I did want to mention on here is I did say that these weren't necessarily linked to your tasks in Outlook, but there is an option where what you can do is you can view this as a sort of calendar, which is like an online calendar, and you can make that visible in Outlook if you wanted to see it. So if you did need to do that, there's a sort of document that I can pass out which will show you how to make these sort of things visible if you wanted to. But that's really all I wanted to show you on Planner. It might spark a few questions, that one, but I think I'll go back to Mark for now and we'll carry on the presentation.
Yeah, thank you for that. We've had, again, some more questions which have come through. It's what we're trying to show you is kind of a flavour of the kind of insight of what else is in there. It might be really useful for your business, may not be. And for example, one question which came through about forms, which is, you could use this for new customer onboardings. So when a customer joins, you send a form out, which then goes through to ask some questions that you need to, health and safety, etc., and come back in. It's just trying to slick up processes that you probably already have in your business. Planner is really useful. Silly things like office moves or new offices or new projects that you just want to distribute work out between each other. And we've got some questions about it. Someone specifically asked about it against Trello, which we'll answer later on. The next thing and the last thing for this session we want to show you is Microsoft Square. It's now it's more of a marketing solution than anything else, and it's about generating and passing out information in a slicker way than just sending out PDFs. Basically, what it fundamentally does is take content, whatever that may be, and pass it through to a website, which you then can send in internally and externally for people to read. Traditionally, it's been born out of the fact that I think everyone I speak to anyway, is particularly bored of reading multiple page presentations. You get to page 7, multiple page PDFs and presentations, to be fair as well. You get to slide 17 or page 17 on a PDF, and you wonder why you're still reading it, to be honest. So Sway is there to make it a bit slicker and send that information out. A good example is the obvious internal health and safety documentation, usually the thrilling read of display equipment, etc., which is very important and very critical to the compliance of a business. So you've got to engage your staff to read and check those off. But fundamentally, a PDF can be a little bit of a boring nightcap read. So Sway allows you to convert those contents into more of a dynamic web-based presentation. So what Andy's going to do is, again, going to give you a little bit of a 5-minute demo of it and go around it and hopefully give you an idea of what it does.
All right, hello again, everyone. All right, so let's move through here. So again, on here, you've got Sway, so that's the icon for Sway. And like with forms, when you first launch this up, it does give you a little bit of a demo video. So again, if you're going on there the first time, take your time and look through that demo, and it'll probably give you a bit of insight as to the kind of things that you can use it for. Now, Sway, the sort of idea behind it is a way of publishing information out to people in a more sort of web first method. So everyone's used to receiving new documents of things like product release, or like Mark said, with the health and safety sort of announcements. And we're still in that sort of traditional way where people are sending things out in a Word document or PDF, and it's sort of dealt with as just a replacement to paper, and everything's stored in a sort of A4 page that you're scrolling through page after page of that. But what Sway allows you to do is generate that in a more web focused manner and make that usually quite a bit easier to digest in these kind of scenarios. So let me show you very quickly how you would go about making a new Sway. So this can take a second to load. And it's very similar. I was speaking to the other half about this, and she referred to it really like Moonpig, where what you can do is you just have this sort of just sort of adding things together editor where you can start typing things in. So we'll say new products range, and we can say add another section. So that might be a heading, and we can say 3D printers. And then start to go through here and add various different elements into this. So you're effectively creating a web page here, but using quite a lightweight tool to do it. And it's really user friendly. So we have a new range of 3D printers. They are called, I don't know, Delta, Merlin, Dolphin, and you can start to build up what that will look like. So you could say add an image at this point. I think I can usually do this if I spelled dolphin right. And you can start to build up what your Sway will look like. Now, again, there's different kinds of objects that you can add to this. A stack is a pretty good one. So a stack is sort of like multiple images on top of each other, where someone gets almost like a sort of slideshow that they can pick through various different bits and pieces. This is where I tend to not have many pictures on my computer here because it's a test environment. But if I just say add image, and I think we can do the searches on here, and I'll do 3D printer, and I can add a few pictures or 3D printers onto here. So you can quickly go through and just add different elements to this. You can add videos, audio files, again with this embedded code. So you could even put a form, I suppose, in here. And once you've started to build this up, close that. And you can imagine how you'd be able to go through and just put that together. I will point on here as well about the design element, because again, like with forms, you can click on design here, and then you get to choose the different styles that you might want. So I can say this is more my sort of theme that is more befitting of my business, and you can choose various ones. And you've made a web page here really, really quickly. There's also a button on here as well that you can just press remix, and it just chooses things at random. That's not actually that bad for a change. And if we go down to the bottom again, oh, is it at the top on this one? Yeah, so you have the option as well to customize these if you're a bit more that way inclined. So you can choose a very specific color or size or font or background image, more befitting of your business. So once we've got all of this set up and we've got it looking the way that we like, that's going sideways. Let me change the style on that to one of the defaults like that. And we can then play it, see what it looks like. And in this case, it's decided to do it going sideways. And you can scroll through, and then when you've got that, you can click through and you can see the different images in that stack that we built. And thanks for looking. Okay, so that's all well and good, and you can put that together if you're starting with that from the initial point. But a lot of the times you might already get some of this information in a different format. So like we said before about a PDF or a Word document, and this is one of the better functions with it really. So if you go to start from a document, rather than having to create everything yourself, there is an example here of some Word doc that I've got, and I can start from that, and Microsoft Sway will go through and it'll analyze that document. It'll look through the different types of document highlights in there. So it'll say which bit of this is a heading, which bit of this is just text, and different grouping on it from Word. And this allows you to do it with Word, PDFs, and PowerPoint presentations as well. So on here, I've now generated this off the back of that Word document, and I can play on that. And this is probably a bit of a nicer looking one than the one that I just threw together. And you can scroll through and you can see how things are sliding in. And you can imagine that if this is the 23rd product launch thing that you're trying to read that's been sent out to you and try and digest, it's a bit easier to scroll through and read in a more manageable way and easier to digest. And things flash up and look nice. So again, once you've generated these sways, how do you then send them out? You've got the share button, and you have the option on there to just have it as specific people, and they're like 365 and the 365 permissions that you've got, or anyone with the link, or people within your organization with the link. And as well, like with the forms, you get this choice on here to do embed code. So if you've got a blog type website or a CMS website that you can embed your own code into, or SharePoint, then you can copy and paste that code in and make this an embedded section within your web page. So again, they're pretty good in a better way, a different way of digesting the information, and usually a bit easier to manage, especially with everybody working remotely and not having to read documents. Okay, so I think that's all I'd want to show on that one. So yeah, back to Mark.
Thanks, Andy. We've had a question which came through actually, which was about the fact that there's so many of these apps now and they're growing so fast and changing, which we actually completely agree with. As Andy showed, they've added a new option into Forms since we prepped this demo last night, and it just gets reviewed out. So it can be a challenge. And it can be difficult to keep on top of these things. Obviously, we've as IT people and running an IT company need to keep ourselves in a job by showing these and demoing them and keeping people up to date. Microsoft, to be fair, do a good job as well in regards of the documentation they put out on such websites as TechNet, and they've got some videos, haven't they, as well, dotted around, Andy, I think, if you correct me if I'm wrong, that you can just go and watch a little bit training videos on. But
they have a few like sort of micro learning kind of stuff. They've got a YouTube channel to Microsoft with a few of these different apps. Also as well, I think that as we move forward, and we've started getting a lot of uptake with all of these webinars that we're doing, and the YouTube channel's getting a few hits. So I think moving forward, if there's them kind of things that you want to see more of, that email address that we mentioned at the beginning, that social at, we're thinking about throwing together some like sort of 15-minute direct to DVD almost sessions rather than
direct to Netflix. But it is, and it does lead on to our next section quite nicely, actually. We asked people who signed up if they had any questions. A lot of people just wanted to have a look at what applications are out there, and hopefully we'll give you a taste of the first three. Later in the slide deck, we'll show you some of the ones we're doing over the next few weeks. But it can be kind of overwhelming, and someone asked about giving examples of what other companies use as a combination of these apps, and how do you think customers can use it better? My answer to that is, don't consider the app as something which you just want to use for using's sake. Consider what business processes you already have in place that you could improve and be slicker. The example which was given on the Q&A before about using forms for new customer startups. Do you have somebody when you onboard a new customer who then emails and asks for health and safety information? By using forms and then linking that maybe, and we'll show you this in some future sessions, to some of the PowerApps that are around, you can automate that. So once you've got a new customer, it triggers a load of actions that ping out to that questionnaire, and it doesn't rely on the admin person or whoever it is in the business to do that, and it can chase and go through that kind of process. Think about what you do day to day now. And if it's a bit laborious, or you've done it for 10 years, then potentially there's a Microsoft app which you already pay for that can help with that out the door and hopefully make a big difference. Andy, I don't think you went into too much detail, but Sway converting PDFs and things like that if you've got stuff that's been lying around, it's a bit dusty, electronically dusty, then consider the apps for it. And then linking back to the question about the training side of it, a lot of these applications are end user focused and designed to basically get stuck in, have a look at it, pick a champion, like we say with Microsoft Teams, somebody who's maybe a little bit more technically minded or has an appetite for process improvements, and get them to have a quick look at it and go through it. This is going to go against the grain because we sell IT consultancy, but we would probably struggle to sell time to train people on Swear. Is that a fair comment, Andy?
Yeah. Well, that's why these things are useful. It's letting people know that they're there and how to use them. Just off the back of that, a good example with that, like you're saying about like electronically dusty with a PDF kind of thing. I mean, think about like your terms and conditions of sale that you've got. 90% of businesses out there have a terms and conditions of sale that they're attaching to emails that they're sending out all the time, that they really want to be able to put somewhere that they can update more regularly. I mean, rather than having to get somebody redo that as a web page and upload it there, you can pretty much do that now with a Sway and just throw that PDF in there. It'll webify it up for you. You can embed the code and put it wherever you wish. So yeah, there's a lot of little tricks that you could do with it. Just have a play and see how it works for you.
Yeah, and obviously not to keep ourselves in a job, but lean on your IT partner. Say, I've had this process for, since I started the business. Is there a better way of doing it? Our business has changed, and most IT companies' business has changed, where solutions like this are on the market, and we're more consultants than we are people who fix laptops, for want of a better term these days. So just ask us. There's no stupid question at all. Your IT partner or us, for example, usually has enough experience within the business to say, oh, well, why don't you use Forms for that? It's a really easy way of doing it, and go through that process. Some examples of how I've seen Microsoft apps used exceptionally well. Microsoft themselves actually use Sway to send out all their products information, which is very relevant to that vertical. So, for example, they'll send us a Sway on things that relate to IT companies, and they keep that Sway up to date. So we just click the link, and we've always got the latest information. We use Forms left, right, and centre for internal usage in terms of what Andy displayed. But also, I've seen companies use it for external usage. That after they've done a training session, instead of handing out that physical piece of paper, they send a Microsoft Forms to the people who did it. Especially as training is no doubtedly going to change over the course of what's happened with COVID, because it'll be done more remotely, so you can't give the piece of paper anywhere. So you might as well send a form out to get it in there and then electronically bring that back in. But really, and not to reverse the question, just consider the processes that you use, and if they've just been around for a long time, there's probably a better way of doing it. And there's probably, and especially if there's small little distinct processes, usually the ones that you could write down in one page of A4, there's a good chance there might be a Microsoft app to help you. And hopefully the future sessions will tie up some of these dots as well. We got asked, why is Planner better than Trello? We did consider this quite a bit, Andy, didn't we, to be honest? And it's not something we could professionally say, oh, Planner is definitely better than Trello, because we don't use Trello, so it would be hard to answer in terms of taking favoritism out of it. We like Planner fundamentally because of the integration into Teams. Specifically, if there's a button on the Teams set up now directly to planners. We like it because it links directly to Outlook in terms of sending notifications when you've got a task assigned, and also when a task is completed. And there's a question which we usually get asked, we get asked in every Planner demo, is can you have a template planner? That was something you couldn't do a year or so ago, but you can now. We've answered that question, and if other people have that requirement, then please just put it in the Q&A and we'll send you that through. But fundamentally, you can do.
Just to add on that one as well, one of the new things that you can do in there as well is just quite simply just copy a plan. So once you've created a plan, there's a button at the top of there where you can just copy plans. So like that new store example that I was giving, if you were rolling out lots of retail outlets and you had the same set of tasks that you'd want to do, and maybe assign it to different people as you were going through, once you've created that first one, you can copy that plan and make it, make another plan that's just got the same tasks and everything associated to it. Again, yeah, it's just like a sort of top level sort of getting started with it, but you'll get more out of having a go and just seeing what's on there, really.
Yeah, and a lot of these applications, actually, it's a rounded comment, but a lot of these applications like Planner and Swear are kind of entry-level solutions that if you don't have anything in place at the moment and you're using a manual process, they're a really good in for it. You might start using Planner and then deem that you actually need a project, for example, or the paid-for versions of Trello or Basecamp because you need extra functionality. But it's an easier way to start walking before you start running in full-term project management. Again, Planner's free. It's included in the packages we talked about, where some of Trello and Basecamp you've got to pay for. So you might not want to go down that. They do have freemium versions and the feature sets are usually pretty good. But again, sometimes costs can be prohibitive, and that's why people prefer the ones which are in the Microsoft stack. And very lastly, we get something called Shadow IT, which is coming around and around so much more now. People are distributed across their homes and installing whatever application to do their job when we all come back together. But fundamentally, from an IT management standpoint, that can be a bit of a nightmare because you end up with siloed bits of data everywhere. Someone's using Trello, someone's using Planner, etc., etc. The one thing the Microsoft applications always have is good management in the back end through the 365 side. So you can go through and see who's using it, who's not using it. But ultimately, you can get control of that from an IT or a management perspective and ensure your staff are being productive in the solutions that you recommend. That might be Trello, but if you decide to go down the Microsoft side, you can build that into the 365 admin as well.
Yeah, so like that, it's like they can't, if someone did leave your business, for example, if you're using something like Trello and it's signed in with someone's personal email account and it's a completely different subscription, if they're using Planner, then they can't just walk away with a copy of what your usual process is for creating a new store or doing a new product launch or your new marketing thing. And wherever they're going, it's all there and it's all safe and it's all secure. And when you disable their 365 account, you're disabling their access to everything.
Good point, that. The next question we had wasn't specifically about the apps, was about Microsoft Teams, which we've done a couple of sessions on, and the recordings are on our YouTube channel, and please have a look. We had a question of, does Teams sync with Outlook? The really short answer is yes. So it pulls all your contacts across, it pulls your calendar across, and it links those very, very nicely together. And please have a look at the our YouTube channel, which Jordan, if you don't mind just putting a link in the Q&A to everyone and publishing that out, that'd be great. And have a look at our previous sessions, which show that in a huge amount of detail. The next question was, can SharePoint or PowerApps be used outside of the office without Wi-Fi? Which Andy's going to answer.
Yeah, okay, so this had us scratching his heads a little bit on there. So what we were thinking that you were looking at with this is if you can use PowerApps in a situation where you've got no internet connection. And the SharePoint bit is an interesting little side note to that. So PowerApps themselves, you can use PowerApps, which we're not going to go into too much today. There is going to be another session on that, which we'll give you some details on later. But PowerApps can have local storage on, like, say, a mobile device or wherever you're running it on, that could then later, when you do get internet connection, sync back up to the sort of rest of the data storage. Now, the specific bit on here about SharePoint as well is I do know that you can connect a Power App to, say, a SharePoint list, and if you're trying to use that as your data source, that won't necessarily work. But there would really be ways of achieving that with the likes of things like Flow and other different technologies where it's not Flow anymore, is it? It's Power Automate. I should keep that one in my head.
Get on brand.
Yeah, everyone, they keep renaming everything. So with Power Automate, you could, for example, have it using the local source and then Power Automate then to sync that to a SharePoint list. There's a lot of things that you can do with that, but that's something that would definitely be a consultancy-led approach, really, to look at that kind of problem and come up with an appropriate solution for you.
The next question we had, which Andy's going to answer, is why doesn't Form do forms?
Right. So again, we've took a bit of a gamble on what we're looking at with this. So Forms does do forms. It's just that I'm presuming that this is as a replacement of Access. So a lot of Access seems to be going away quite a bit at the minute because it's not very good from a sort of cloud perspective. It's still part of the whole sort of suite, but just people are using it less and less, and it's not really doing a very good job at migrating to the whole sort of cloud environment. So the forms in Access are sort of being replaced again with PowerApps, and the way that them kind of things are being stored. Again, we'll do a session on PowerApps and how you would do that. So yeah, I think that's probably why it's not doing forms in the way that you're looking at. But for collecting information and storing them somewhere, forms is probably a decent choice.
Thanks, Andy. The next one was how well does all these things work with people with someone who doesn't have 365? Obviously, all the things all the products we show which you're going to use internally, you'll all have 365, so that's not really points to the question. And we also find these days that a huge amount of people you're dealing with have 365 compared to G Suite, for example. It's much more commercial offering that has taken off massively. So it's a rare event. But there are ways, aren't there, Andy, that it can help with people who don't have it?
Yeah, so I mean, on this, 365 as a whole, there's a lot of stuff to it. It is a platform of tons of applications, as you've seen on there. Again, we've got a slide later on where we just give a sort of overall what the whole 365 ecospace really looks like. But when you're dealing with people who don't have 365, so usually that might be an external person that you're dealing with, there's a lot of sort of touch points for that. Microsoft are adding more as they're going through. So like with Teams, you can now have guest members in Teams who do not have a 365 account, for example. They might have Gmail or some other random mail provider that they can join a team in Teams still as a guest. There's the stuff in Forms as well where you can share a link to people outside of your organization. They don't need to have 365 for that. The same as if you're sending a link to a Sway. Yeah, there's all sorts of bits and pieces with external touch points on there, and Microsoft are really starting to work more on bringing in some of the other things. So it wouldn't surprise me if they started allowing you to log in with various other single sign-on providers, like maybe Google and Facebook, so that you can then add them as members to various things within your organization in 365 in the future. So yeah, keep an eye on it. Yeah.
This links back to the first question, really. Look at the process you're trying to achieve and upgrade, basically. If somebody's on the outside of that process, your customer or supplier traditionally, the first question is to ask them, do you have a 365 account? And if they don't, then there's usually, as Andy said, there's ways around it, or there's ways you can discuss it. We do have some customers who actually pay the smallest fee possible for a 365 account for their customers. It's built into the contract that they have, and they recharge some of that. So you're basically extending your environment out as well, which is huge potential. Take a look at the use case, and again, lean on your IT provider. If you're one of our customers, just ask, and we'll happily answer and look at the detail for you and give you a professional opinion.
Yeah. It's definitely a case-by-case kind of question, really.
Yeah. And the next question was, what is all the differences between all these applications? And we're going to show you in a second what we're going to do next, which covers OneDrive and OneNote in the next week's session. And is Teams really the front end of it? And it's a really good question, and I completely agree. Teams is so prevalent now, and it's so integrated into every application because you can embed SharePoint. It links to your OneNote. You can embed OneNote. It links to your OneDrive. Outlook is not a dying product, because that's not true. Email is obviously always going to be around, but email is the one-to-all email is gone. It's all a Teams thing, and Teams is really usually the application that's opened the most on people's PCs who use these different applications, and is your front page to it. So we'd heavily recommend, if you're not a Teams user already, you do, because the access to these applications is easier. It is confusing, but you can access, for example, forms you can embed into Teams, but you set up in the website. So there's a little bit of initial training to do, and you need to understand where to get to these applications. But Teams is a really good resource to kind of pool them all together and get quick access to it. So, I've sent a OneNote out. How should I get it to people? If it's internal, send it out via Teams. Quick one message, Bob's your uncle. So it is a good question. And it also depends on your business of how much you use of the stack of products. Our intention isn't to get every customer we have using every product within the Microsoft portal, because that's just unreasonable. And there are better solutions on the market for ERP, for example, and if you're very distinct in those areas. And so you've just got to consider what you have. But Teams is a really, really good starting point. And please watch the videos we have on our YouTube channel, because we've gone through that in a significant amount of detail now, and we'll probably do more in the future. The next question, sorry, I just went back a slide. The next question was, all the apps, etc., of different functions, is there a simple way of looking at an overall blueprint to help a business? Now, it's specifically asked about a company filing communication system. We took it a bit wider spread and put together this slide. So we thank you to Laura, our marketing manager, for doing this, because there's nothing really on the internet that kind of gives this kind of viewpoint.
Yeah.
This is the collection of Microsoft solutions that you probably pay for 99% of these. A few of the billable ones, just for info, is I'll get my laser pointer out. Is the Dynamics ones, for example, Business Central, they're chargeable, and the CRM and ERP solutions. And some of the power side of it, you've got to have additional subscriptions for. But fundamentally, most of these are included in your portal, and you'll find the icon like Andy showed you. And we've split them up into what you're used to using day in, day out, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, are the applications that you had on your PC that actually are really good now in the browser as well.
Yeah.
You've got
just point out on that one. We've got Word, Excel, and Word. That's OneNote.
Yeah. Oh dear, Laura. I give you loads of credit, Laura, but I'm now backtracking. No, it's okay. And this was a last-minute thing last night, so it's absolutely fine. And we're going to go through OneNote next week. You've got the email side, which is more your Outlook, but that's now spreading out into tasks, your calendar, people, these contacts. And then you have a My Analytics, which show you, well, if you work a lot of hours outside of 9 to 5, don't click that button, because it basically tells you how many free days a month you get by not reading your emails, and it can be kind of scary, in all fairness.
How much work is impacting your social life.
Yeah. So it's interesting reading, but not if you're a workaholic. And then what we're trying to show is the value add, all the applications that most people don't really know about. But we want to see if it's got any usefulness for you, to be honest. So forms, planner, Sway, what we've gone through today, and we're going to go through bookings next week, and then there's some more as well. So it is difficult, and we understand this. Our real intention is to show you what's out there, and hopefully you can see some value in the processes that you struggle with in your business. Obviously, from a consultancy-led approach, which Andy touched on, you can pay people, I'm not suggesting us, but you can pay people to come into your business, review all the processes, and look at what applications are out there, which you could put into place. But I think as a starting point, especially as business leaders, IT managers, consider what you do on a repetitive basis, so the easy wins. So I know that every time we start with a new customer, we do send them some health and safety documentation. So that'll be done in forms, because it's quicker and easier to do, and it's more traceable, and it doesn't rely on that person doing it in the process as well. So there's those things to consider and go through, and please just have a look at that.
I have to admit, I really love that slide, because just going back to that for a second, when you first go onto that portal.office.com or office.com, it's really confusing, and there's all these hidden buttons and everything, and they are sort of like different groups of applications. So that section that we've got down there in Exchange, I don't know why Microsoft has decided to make them like 5 different apps. That's all basically Outlook, online. You've got the Office suite, the collaboration stuff's all set up. That I think really helps demystify what all of these 365 apps are all about, because I know it's confusing. So grab a screenshot if you want, or go to the video if you want to capture a copy of this at a later date. And
somebody actually asked that there's so many apps. I wish there was a session on an executive overview of these. That's definitely possible. We usually find that every business is different, and without knowing the intrinsic processes you have, it's hard to nail down onto specific ones. And you're right, it is becoming more and more of a challenge. Please, we'll chop up this webinar and we'll do some 15-minute sessions on each one. Please send our links to your staff and see if your managers and further down in terms of your business granular levels have requirements for specific things. A real good route, and I've said it a few times now, if you do something again and again every month, and it takes 20 minutes for somebody to do or an hour to do, let's talk about that, because there's probably a faster way of doing it. So going forward, the upcoming sessions, next week, we're going to continue these, which are now called the Seriun Sessions. We're going to continue them, and we're going to look at OneDrive, and we've not really looked at it. We looked at SharePoint a couple of weeks ago. OneDrive's been around for ages, got significantly better, and is very similar to SharePoint, but has some distinct differences, and it's quite useful. So we're going to do another 5-10 minutes on that next week. We're going to do a bit of a session on OneNote. Personally, I use OneNote all day long. It's a great application that's been embedded into the 365 application stack and embeds really well with Teams, and is really useful across the business of sharing notes. Basically, it's a note-taking solution, for want of the simplest term, and it's brilliant in my opinion. I know I'm sounding like I'm a proper fanboy of it, but it is really good.
Are.
Yeah, well, to be honest, it just saves hassle is the best way of describing it. And so, from account management in terms of moving around and such, but we'll save that all for next week. And then we're going to cover something called bookings, which isn't really on people's button list, but you can enable it. And it's a good way of, if you run a micro business, taking online bookings, but also from a business perspective, allowing people access to your calendar basically in a secure method for them to book sessions, works really well for salespeople and such. So we're going to cover that. And then the week after is what we're calling the Power Hour. I don't know who came up with that one. But Microsoft have 3 applications, Power BI, Power Automate, and PowerApps. In all honesty, we could spend probably about 6 days on those. There's a huge swath of information and processes in there. But fundamentally, what these are is ways of disseminating information a lot easier for people, slicing and dicing information. And then also automating all the things we talked about. So, Andy, please jump in whenever, but most of the 365 applications have a way of automating their processes through Power Automate. So when something happens, you can do something else. So when you get a new customer and something is triggered, it can send out a form to go and basically say how we're doing.
Yeah.
And
I'll just stop you on. Yeah. So rather than so just to phrase that in a slightly different manner, Power Automate can connect to most of the 365 sort of applications. So rather than the application having a way to trigger Power Automate, it's more you start from Power Automate outwards. Yeah. Just for clarity.
And it's to link those together. So our intention is to show you the distinct applications that are there, and then Power Automate, as Andy says, links them together. And then PowerApps is a way of making applications yourself, for want of a better term, and publicising them, as we've touched on. So we're going to do a good session on that, hopefully, mainly driven by Andy, as you can tell from my knowledge of these. But he's very passionate about them and knows them really well. So we'll do a similar session. Just lastly, as well, if you want to see other ones in the future, if we've not covered or not answered any questions as you would have liked us to do in the chat or through these sessions, please just drop an email to social@seriun.co.uk and we'll come back to you and go through it in more granular detail. But we do appreciate feedback, good or bad, of what you'd like to see in more of these. As Andy's alluded to, we're going to start chopping up these sessions and making little 15-minute demos of the applications that you could potentially just send out to your staff and say, is this useful or not? If it is, then roll with it a bit further. So please just drop us an email to that and we'll pick that up as well. We'll also follow up any questions we've not answered in the presentation through the Q&A, but I'm just having a quick look now and Jordan's done an amazing job going through, hopefully. Yeah, as per usual, Jordan. Thank you, sir. And we'll follow up any ones which which have not been answered to that great level as well. But thank you for coming. Thank you for attending. Hopefully, it's been useful. And please keep an eye out for the follow-up email, which will have the YouTube links, and you can have a look through other sessions as well. So thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers.